second. It should be in a second. All right. Shit.
Okay. It sounds much better. No, it was good. And it went out.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
We good now?
Yes, much better.
Oh man, you really got to work for it sometimes.
Hey, Lord, you got it. Just go. Don't worry about the chat.
Actually, you know what's cool is I am seeing your chats here. This is it's coming up in my window here. So all right. So
All right.
um, thank you guys so much for your patience. Hey Brittany. There's a little bit of delay, a few seconds of delay, but that's all good. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanata Swaminiti Namine. Can I get an amen? I can't hear you even if you guys do an amen. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Can someone type an amen into the chat? All right, thank you very much. All right, got that. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. So for anyone who doesn't know, these prayers that we chant, invocation, asking for blessings, you definitely want me to ask for blessings before I speak, because you do not want to hear me speak without the blessings. It's like, what is that guy talking about? So we beg for the blessings to get our heads on straight. Do this as service. Lawrence and I, while we were setting up this little broadcast, Lawrence and I definitely were praying for the mercy. Hey, Titi Lio. If you know the words, please sing along. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda. It's Gopi! Survivor! You know Gopi's theme song is I will survive! I will survive! No matter what, man. Bhakti Yoga DC, I gotta say, has been through so many challenges, and every step of the way, Gopi's like this powerful mother lion, and she's like, you're gonna try and attack my baby, you gotta come through me. You know what I'm talking about? So beautiful. Stream of consciousness here. You know, one thing I've been thinking about during this whole time is, okay, look, this time that we're going through is going to end. And everyone's going to be sick of Zoom, and everyone's going to get back together and give each other big hugs and kisses. It will end, because everything in this material world at some point comes to an end. So the question that I have for myself and the question that I have for you is, when it ends, are we going to look back on this time and say, what a great blessing. I learned so much during that time. I used it to its fullest potential, and I gained so much. I went so deep. Or are we going to say, man, I wish I had done X, Y, Z, you know? So let's sing together. Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So someone here is asking for the Narasimha prayer. Maybe we can sing that a little later. Whose fox cried? Do I know you? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I hope you're singing really loudly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. There's another famous prayer for protection that was often sung by Sri Chaitanya, which is one of my favorite things to sing. And I don't know if you guys have seen, our buddy Janavi has a song that she just put out with Willow Smith, and part of this chant is in that song. They call it Surrender, Krishna Keshava, I think it's called. Oh, I see, I see, I see. They were talking about the mother lion, Narasimha. Nice. I like that. How about this song? This is one that Sri Chaitanya used to sing when he was walking by himself through the countryside, all alone. Oh, Krishna, 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 hey. 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 Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. So we'll do Krishna Rakshamam, then Krishna Pahimam. Sing with me. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahima. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahima. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama. Oh, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. You guys all singing with me? I hope so. Otherwise, you guys are all gonna get a demerit. Demerit. Can you guys? Hope everything's still clicking along here in the interwebs. So, yeah. So, I'm hoping that this maybe can be the first in a series. It can go as long or as short as we want. We may go down in flames. We almost went down in flames before we even started. We couldn't even get online. But if you want to follow along, there's two ways that you could do that. There's an app that I recommend often, and it's called Pocket Vedas. And Pocket Vedas is it's pricey, but it has all of the entire works of the writings of Srila Prabhupada. I may have mentioned this before to some of you guys. That was your favorite song, Gopi? Ah, wonderful. So, Pocket Vedas, it's on the whatever app store or whatever. You can also go to vedabase.com. I think is it .com. Maybe Lawrence, you could check that out. Vedabase, and then you select Krishna book, and there's a bunch of different books there, and we could read along together if you guys would like. This book that I would like to, this is kind of my idea for a series of conversations. It's called Krishna, and let's see, written by Srila Prabhupada. Tweak the volume up a shade. You've got it, my friend. Let's see, is this any better? When I'm singing, it's a little hot, but maybe is this better now? Let me know if this is a little bit better. Okay, we got a delay, so you gotta let me know. If it's not, I'll turn it up some more. So, Krishna book. That's the name. It's a pretty straightforward title. Krishna book. And it's all about Krishna. So we've got, well, let me say a couple things before we get started. First of all, I want to just shout out to support Bhakti Yoga DC because, as you know, all these, Lawrence put up the link there. All of these, 3D brick and mortar locations are struggling without us. So please be super generous and support them, donate to them, help keep them open during this COVID Asura, the demons. We're going to hear a lot about Krishna killing demons in this. There's a lot of the stories. And, when we're in a time like this, we go, oh yeah, that's why we need God's intervention to kind of like cut through this nonsense. So thanks, Elizabeth. Hey, it's Anita. Haribol, Anita. So please, I'm missing you guys too, Anita and Robert, my dear friends. Hey, Lawrence sent that link, Krishna book on Vedabase, and we'll be going through that in a second. So shout out to Bhakti Yoga DC. Please give them lots of money and support them. And same for me. Our situation is different. I'm launching a Patreon page, which is my way of staying connected to my friends and sharing all my creative output right there on Patreon. New songs come out there, links to all the stuff that I do like this. It all goes up there, storytelling and videos and everything going up to Patreon. So that's patreon.com/Gaura Vani. So enough of all of that. So Krishna book. So let's start before we tell the story of how this book came to be. Let me read this beautiful dedication written by the author, Srila Prabhupada. To my father, he writes, Gaur Mohan De, 1849 to 1930. A pure devotee of Krishna who raised me as a Krishna-conscious child from the beginning of my life. In my boyhood ages, he instructed me how to play the mridanga. He gave me Radha Krishna Vigraha to worship, and he gave me Jagannath Rath to duly observe the festival as my childhood play. I'll explain these things in a second. He was kind to me, and I imbibed from him the ideas later on solidified by my spiritual master, the Eternal Father. I love this introduction. So Mary's asking for a link to support Bhakti Yoga DC too. So here's mine. Patreon.com/Gaura Vani. So yeah, please type that in, Gopi. So isn't that a lovely introduction? I love that introduction. So he talks about how his father gave him deities of Radha Krishna to worship, and the Jagannath cart, he used to pull it as a child. And I love how tender this introduction is. He says, his simple thing is that he raised him with Krishna consciousness, and he was kind to me, and I imbibed from him the ideas later solidified by my spiritual master. So it just goes to show how this kindness and the love that we share with our friends, our family, how it has a spiritual root and it feeds all of us. It's not that our spiritual community is somehow or other deeper than our own family. Our family is the first place that we can share our Krishna conscious ideals, our hearts. So, a little funny story about Prabhupada, the author of this book. And Prabhupada happens to be, you guys may know this, but Gopi, and for those who don't know, Gopi is the founder and owner of Bhakti Yoga DC. Gopi's guru and my guru are two different people. We are initiated by two different teachers. Both of them are initiated by Srila Prabhupada, the author of this book. So we come in this line through Srila Prabhupada. And this, how do I say this? This lineage, if you call it, this lineage is ancient and powerful. And so we often will teach directly from this lineage because, what do we have without, our direct connection, right? So others may teach from their lineages, which come from different places. But Gopi and I will often teach directly from this lineage. It's called the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Mentioning Brahma, the archangel of creation, he's the founder of our Sampradaya, believe it or not. And then Madhva is another prime link in our lineage, and he was, like, I want to say, 1,000 years ago or something like that. And then we have Chaitanya, who was 500 years ago. Gaudiya, Gaura, or Gouda is sometimes pronounced Gouda. So Gauriya or Gaudiya. So this is our lineage. So Srila Prabhupada, who wrote this book, he, one funny story, when he was a kid, he was encouraged to go study abroad. And he says somewhere that my father wasn't interested in me studying in England or studying abroad. He was only going to be happy if I did two things. And the two things that Prabhupada mentions is he wanted me to become a devotee of Sri Radha, and he wanted me to learn to play the mridanga drum. I love that. I find that so sweet. It's these simple devotional aspirations. So this book is collected stories of Krishna, and specifically from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be the book form, the literary form of Krishna. And by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, or this book, you're actually filling your ears and filling your heart with Krishna. And so every moment that we're engaged in this, we are nurturing our spiritual senses and our soul. So the story behind this book is twofold. And I'll just quickly tell you, because if we want to appreciate this, it's, I think, good to know where it came from. So Prabhupada touches on this later, but the 10th canto is this, the Bhagavatam is this 12 canto work. Like, you can't see my hands, but it's like this long. It's massive, right? And the 10th canto is one thick, fat book. And in the 10th canto are all this conversation between Parikshit Maharaj, a king who's going to die, and Sukadev Goswami, the speaker of the book. And Prabhupada basically has condensed their conversation and stories all from this one book into this short two-volume book called Krishna. So it is really wonderful because it's not only taking directly from Bhagavatam, but it's also Prabhupada's own ecstatic meditations, thoughts, and reflections on the text, all condensed into one spot. So far so good. Everyone doing okay? All this making sense? Someone please give me a comment or a heads up. All right. So that's the first part of the story. Here's the second part of the story. One of my dear friends and mentor, his name is Shyam Sundar. And if you want to read a great book, he has a series that he's coming out with. He's got the two books now published, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There's a third volume coming. And Shyam Sundar, long story short, he had this idea that I want to go bring Krishna to the Beatles. He told Prabhupada, I think this would be so good. If the Beatles become devotees of Krishna, then the whole world will become devotees of Krishna. So Prabhupada said, okay, if you would like to do this, then please, you have my blessings. So he goes with some friends, Malati and Mukunda and Janaki and Yamuna, and they go and they meet the Beatles. It's a whole long, beautiful story. I won't get into it, but basically, they were baking apple pies and delivering them to Apple Records. But first, they were offering them to Krishna. They were blessing them, and they were offering them, and then they were delivering them to Apple Studios and Apple Records. So one day, he was just kind of hanging out because this was like the it spot place to be. It was like where the Beatles held court. And one day George Harrison walks out of the back room and he just walks straight across the room right to Shyam Sundar. And he goes, there you are. I've been looking for you people. So he makes good friends with George Harrison. And, devotees of Krishna, they are striving to just be satisfied with what Krishna gives, right? So devotees of Krishna aren't really grasping for material things. So it was such a breath of fresh air for George Harrison to be with these people who never asked him for anything, because basically they were just chanting and they just wanted him to chant, and everyone was just like, singing kirtan together and spending time together and learning about Krishna and reading about Krishna. And so Prabhupada came and they met George Harrison. It was wonderful. And finally, Prabhupada, in his just simple earnestness, he says to Shyam Sundar one day, Shyam Sundar, you should ask George Harrison to fund the publishing of this book, Krishna. And Shyam Sundar thinks, oh no, now I have to be that guy who was just hanging out with George Harrison because I wanted some money from him or something. And he was so stressed out to ask George. He'd never asked him for anything. But Prabhupada was asking. Prabhupada was his spiritual master. Prabhupada had given him everything, even the inspiration to go meet George Harrison. So he goes, and they're in George Harrison's estate mansion or whatever. It's this, and they're at this huge long table having dinner, and Shyam Sundar's like, oh my God, I've got to ask. This is the point. I mean, how I can't put it off any longer. He had put it off for so long. Prabhupada asked, did you speak to George? And and it was like, no, I haven't asked him. Finally, he's like, all right, I got to do this. So they're at the table, and he kind of clears his throat. George, Swamiji is wondering if maybe he wanted me to ask you if perhaps you'd consider funding the publishing of his new book called Krishna. And he can see George just turns and looks at him, and the look on his face. He can see, oh no, like I've crossed that line with this person who everyone wants something from. And George kind of is quiet for a second, and they're in the middle of this dinner. And then all of a sudden, there's this massive a clap of thunder and a lightning bolt, and the power goes out completely in the entire place. And it goes out for a few minutes, and people are clattering dishes, and people are running around, and everyone's trying to figure things out. And finally the light comes back on, and George is sitting there leaning back, smiling from ear to ear. And he says to Sham Sundar, so how much will it be then? That it was like, he took it as like, okay, Krishna definitely wants me to get the message to help these folks out. The lights go out. How much will it be then? So, he did it. He paid for the funding of this book. And he also wrote, hey, is this Patrick from Towson side who's commenting now in our chat group? My new buddy, Patrick Paulus. All right. So he wrote the introduction to this beautiful book that he paid for the printing of. So what does he write? You guys following along here? It's keywords, Krishna book, words from Apple. You seeing it there in the book? That's right. When God speaks, we have to listen. I think God's speaking right now, and so we would be smart to listen, right? COVID. It's one of the many ways that we're a little thick-headed, and so we need to be spoken to very clearly sometimes. Stop abusing the earth. Stop abusing animals. Stop abusing each other. You guys are practically a parasite on this planet. Maybe some messages coming through. So what does George say about this book, Krishna? Everybody is looking for Krishna, says George. Some don't realize that they are, but they are. Krishna is God, the source of all that exists, the cause of all that is, was, or ever will be. As God is unlimited, he has many names. Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, Rama, all are Krishna, all are one. God is not abstract. He has both the impersonal and personal aspects of his personality, which is supreme, eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As a single drop of water has the same qualities as an ocean of water, so has our consciousness the qualities of God's consciousness. But through our identification and attachment with the material energy, physical body, sense pleasures, material possessions, ego, etc., our true transcendental consciousness has been polluted, and like a dirty mirror, it is unable to reflect a pure image. Beautiful writing by George. Let me put this down here for a second. I'll read some more. With many lives, our association with the temporary has grown. This impermanent body, a bag of bones and flesh, is mistaken for our true self, and we have accepted this temporary condition to be final. Through all ages, great saints have remained as living proof that this non-temporary, permanent state of God consciousness can be revived in all living souls. Each soul is potentially divine. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, steady in the self, being freed from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the supreme consciousness. Bhagavad Gita 6:28. Yoga, a scientific method for God, self-realization, is the process by which we purify our consciousness, stop further pollution, and arrive at the state of perfection, full knowledge, full bliss. If there is a God, I want to see him. It's pointless to believe in something without proof, and Krishna consciousness and meditation are methods where you can actually obtain God perception. You can actually see God and hear him, play with him. It might sound crazy, but he is actually there, actually with you. There are many yogic paths, Raja, Jnana, Hatha, Kriya, Karma, Bhakti, which are all acclaimed by the masters of each method. Swami Bhaktivedanta is, as his title says, a Bhakti yogi, following the path of devotion, by serving God through each thought, word, and deed, and by chanting his holy names. The devotee quickly develops God consciousness by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One inevitably arrives at Krishna consciousness. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I wish Gopi was live. Gopi should do this. We need that Liverpudlian accent from old Georgie. I request that you take advantage of this book, Krishna, and enter into its understanding. I also request that you make an appointment to meet your God now through the self-liberating process of yoga union and give peace a chance. All you need is love. Krishna, Hari Bol, George Harrison, March 31st, 1970, Apple, Core, Savile Row, London, etc., etc. So, any thoughts on George's introduction? I find it lovely and charming, full of sweet energy. Love to hear any of your thoughts. So, we were just chanting the Mahamantra earlier, and it's three simple names, and yet it contains the entire scope of the material and spiritual worlds. Because we are all, as George said, spiritual in nature, we are actually always in touch with Krishna, with spirit, but we lose that awareness. And so kirtan, and singing, and these bhakti practices, service, all these things that we do to reconnect us, they're just, as Radhanath Swami, my guru, His Holiness Radhanath Swami likes to say, removing what is not you, taking away the other stuff, filtering out and cleansing the consciousness. So, any thoughts or questions? Please let me know. So this is, there's two ways we can look at this book together. I'm going to go back to the index here. After this little Apple thing, there's a preface and there's an introduction. So, and then it goes into the actual stories. So, I think since how are we doing for time? Since we're almost out of time, I want to, do we actually have to stop exactly at 8 o'clock? You guys let me know. Since I started so late, I'm happy to go longer, but I don't want to mess up your guys' time and stuff. So, let me know. And Lawrence, please text me if you need to say anything. So why don't we sing a little bit now? And next time we get together, we can dig into this book. Feel free to dig into it more without me, now that you know where to get it for free and for paid. How does that sound? Let me know what you guys think about that. Let's see here. What can we sing? What should we sing? Take your time, says Titi Layo. Okay, we'll go to 8:15. Hey, Titi Layo, check out my Patreon page. All you guys, check out my Patreon page. I'm excited to share that. And I am doing all kinds of offerings up there that you guys might like. Tell one story, Gopi says. Well, I kind of wanted to, so I'll sing a little bit and then we can tell a little story. I kind of, to be honest though, I've been reading this book on my own, And I kind of wanted... Well, here was my experience. Reading the book, I've experienced how beautiful it is that that Prabhupada tells the story. Because he's experiencing it in a different way than I am. So, yeah, we can talk about kirtan and story time. We can work it out. But let me sing this song. Here's what I was thinking to sing. When's the last time we sang Surrender together? Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, which, to remind you, it means I take refuge. The Lord is my refuge. I take refuge in the holy name of Krishna. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, my refuge, my refuge. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam. Let me turn the sound down a little bit. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam. You guys are singing as loud as you possibly can. "43 years I've been doing it my way. It's brought me here. The road behind me is littered with the ruins, decisions I made in fear. Yeah. But don't be afraid. The Lord had so sweetly said, yeah, and depending on His word, I will surrender, 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 yeah. Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam. My habitual desire to control, I keep trying to abandon. And from my schemes, oh so carefully conceived, I release everyone. And in humility, set you free from me. Oh, my playing God is over, and now it's surrender, surrender, surrender. Yeah. Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam. Everyone together, Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam, Shri Krishna Sharanam. I pray to be a bow upon my life, a fixing arrow, a dazzling weapon of your will, my Lord. Like the poet said, and that string that sings me mine, and as a simple tool of your design, I pray to be a bow upon my life, a fixing arrow, a dazzling weapon of your will, my Lord. You're like the poet said, let that string that sings be mine, and as a simple tool of your design, I pray to be a bow upon my life, a fixing arrow, be a weapon of your will, my Lord. The poet said, let that string that sings be mine, and as a simple tool of your design. Remember, remember, pretender, pretender, surrender, surrender. Oh, yeah. Oh. Let's sing together one more time. Shri Krishna Sharanam, 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 Shri Krishna Sharanam. Okay, let's dig into. We'll come back. We'll come back to Krishna book next time. But I really want to read this together. That would be my hope, my goal. And I do think it's helpful to start with the preface and the introduction and actually hear Prabhupada's introduction to this book. But let's have a little story since we're all together in these last few minutes. These times like this remind me of the story of Kaliya, because Kaliya was a many hundreds of headed serpent with hundreds of heads. He was giant, and he was living in a lake inside the Yamuna River. So the poison that he was spewing out began to affect the nature around him, and so much so that the fumes would go up into the air, and even the birds and other creatures flying by would be affected by his poison. I'm just looking at your notes here. Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you. Beautiful ideas. Let's see what the Lord manifests. So, Krishna's friends went one day to drink water, and they went down to the river. And as they got close to the river and began to drink the water began to poison them, and they basically fainted and almost died. And Krishna came after some time looking for them, and he came to that place, and he realized what was going on. Now, when we get back to this book, hopefully next time, Prabhupada gives an understanding of why Krishna comes to this world. This world is a very difficult place. Krishna comes from the spiritual world to this world, really just to attract us back home to where we belong. This whole material world is really a co-creation between us and Krishna. He as the prime producer, and us as the main talent. We're here basically making a giant mess of this place, and he's just trying his best to hold the whole thing together and facilitate us with our desires, what we want to manifest. So that's why this world is so hectic and crazy. Prabhupada makes the point that actually, although everything is resting in Krishna, just like, for example, everything that we experience is coming from Krishna in the same way that a massive rain, brings crop growth. But Prabhupada makes the point that the cloud is not directly responsible for what kind of crops grow. So in that same way, it's up to the individual soul to manifest their destiny. And Krishna is giving us all facility, just like that rain cloud. And we all are growing into these wild plants and creatures. Some are edible, some are poisonous. So Kaliya was this serpent who had began to poison his world because of his consciousness. And Krishna saw what was going on, and so he had to do something. He had to rescue his friends, and he brought them back to life. And then he climbed on this tree, the only tree that was still living by the lake. And it's described how beautifully he climbed up. And everything about Krishna is so awesome and so beautiful. The way he wears his turban, the color clothes, his blue-colored skin. I mean, basically, Krishna is the ultimate hipster, the hipster of all hipsters. So he comes, and it's described that he takes his sash off, and he ties it like a belt, like almost like a theatrical wrestler or something like that. And then Krishna just jumps right in the poisonous lake. And for a long time, no one can see him. He's just gone. And he starts making all this ruckus in the water. And eventually this serpent Kaliya, his name is Kaliya, he comes out, and Krishna starts to antagonize him and make as much noise as possible to disturb him. And then Kaliya comes to Krishna and he grabs him in his coils, and he grabs him around his neck and around his waist and around his legs, and just completely, it seems that this giant serpent has just completely captured Krishna, and he's like this, all tied up. And everyone runs back to get Krishna's parents and all the villagers and Krishna's older brother Balaram, and everyone comes, they're praying at the side of this river. Oh no, what has happened? Now, you'll see as we go through this story, Krishna has many times done miraculous feats. But in their mood of love for him, they always just see him as their companion, as their friend, as their child. And every time Krishna does something for the sake of chastising some demon or killing some, evil guy, or like doing some, mystical thing, they always, after a short time, they just kind of write it off and say, well, yeah, something mystical happened, but we love Krishna. That's the most important thing. Krishna's our beloved. Krishna's our darling. Krishna's our friend. And they forget about all that God business. And that's one of the qualities of the people of Vrindavan, is that for us, we approach God so often. If we even approach God, we approach God so often. Please give me this. I want this. I need this. But the residents of Vrindavan, even when presented with proof again and again that Krishna was God among them, they still never allowed it to cloud their love for him, and all they wanted was love from him. They didn't want anything. They actually kind of ignored the whole God business. So, how are we doing for time? We're doing okay for time. So, Krishna's trapped. Now, the only person who wasn't scared was his brother Balaram, because Krishna and Balaram are actually brothers, but they're also kind of both direct divine expression, expansion. Krishna is the source, Purushottama. He is the topmost Purusha, the topmost person. So Krishna is the source. He's the original. And his immediate expansion or expression is Balaram. And he comes in this form as his elder brother. So Balaram was laughing. He's like, Krishna, he loves drama. He loves making a big show. And he was the only one. He's like, don't worry. It'll be okay. It'll all be all right. So Krishna's mother, she's so anxious. She sees him in this poison water captured by the snake, and she goes to throw herself in the water to try and rescue Krishna. Can you imagine how his mom must have felt seeing him trapped like that? And then when they restrained her, she couldn't keep her kind of like consciousness, because she was she was so anxious for Krishna that basically she just fainted, and she'd wake up and then she'd faint again like that. And at some point Balaram was like, okay, Krishna, this is going on for a while. It took a couple of hours of wrestling with this serpent. But they were like, cowherds, so country boys. So they might have called it wrasslin'. That's a country expression, right? Wrasslin' with the snake. So then finally Krishna saw that he had put everyone through enough anxiety. Gopis fainting, his parents freaking out, the cowherd boys, full of anxiety. And so he suddenly wriggled out of the serpent's coils, and he jumped up on Kaliya's head. And he had Krishna used to wear these little beautiful bells on his ankles. And every time he kicked the snake, cha-ching, cha-ching, ching-ching, ching-ching, it was like tap dancing, but with bells on hundreds of 1,000-headed serpent. And the snakes just get pounded by Krishna's feet. Bam, 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 bam. And little by little, Krishna starts dancing effortlessly. And people basically see, like, what? Krishna was trapped for hours and suddenly he jumps out and now he's dancing on the heads of Kaliya? It was so captivating to see. And every time the snake, Krishna would step off that head, he'd pull that head and he'd try and strike Krishna with that head, and Krishna would just jump effortlessly and kick that head. Bam, 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 bam. like that, until soon the snake was starting to lose all of his awareness, and he was starting to like lose his consciousness, lose his life, and he started to vomit fire and blood. Oh my Lord, what a horrible scene. And Krishna was just dancing on top of this scene. The Kaliya was about to lose his life, and suddenly from under the water appeared Kaliya's wives and babies. And they all gathered them nicely together, and they brought them to Krishna, and they said, Krishna, please, our husband is a fool, and we're so glad that you chastised him and that you humbled him. But if you would like, please can you bless him and let him learn his lesson? You've kicked out all of his pride. Bless him and allow him to live. And so Krishna basically pummeled the pride and envy out of Kaliya. And then Krishna said, okay, you have to leave this place, but I bless you to be my devotee. And so Kaliya was like, yes, sir. He packed up all of his snake bags, snake skin luggage. That's weird. Snake skin luggage. I don't know what it wasn't snake skin luggage. It was I don't know what it was. He packed up all his luggage and everything, and he and his family, they left. And it's said that they went to the island of Fiji. And to this day, I have a friend who's from Fiji, and there's a famous cave where they say that you can go there, and Kaliya lives in this cave, and that they put out these food offerings, and every year he comes and he eats these food offerings. You know what I'm saying? These incredible stories of Krishna and Kaliya. So actually, we may know that Garuda, the golden eagle that Krishna flies on, is his usual carrier, but one of his carriers is also Kaliya. And sometimes he travels on Kaliya, and sometimes he travels on Garuda. So, hey, it's Iris. What's up, Iris? So, Kaliya. So all these demons, Krishna, everything Krishna does, like, okay, Krishna is the source of everything. You know? Have you ever like seen a comedian who can announce what needs to happen for a program and make jokes at the same time, right? He's like doing two things at once. He's like so effortlessly telling jokes that you don't realize that he's actually like giving you the information that you need. You're like, wow, that was so effortless. Krishna does that, but with everything at once. He's the source of poetry and of music and of dance, of philosophy. Philosophy falls off of Krishna's body like droplets of sweat. You know what I'm saying? So Krishna in this Leela, the story of his chastisement of Kaliya, because Kaliya's wives were devotees of Krishna, their prayers on behalf of Kaliya blessed him. So we should know that as aspiring bhaktas ourselves, that for those prayers that we make on behalf of others, they're incredibly powerful. That's one thing. Another thing is that these qualities that Kaliya represents, which he had, he represents in our life also. So, envy and pride, they're like poison. And, we may not want to accept, but these kinds of qualities are what bring us to the state that we're in. This COVID-19 situation is an expression from the planet that there's too much envy and there's too much pride, there's too much abuse. So just like Kaliya, Krishna needs to chastise us and humble us and smash our pride and remind us that envy and pride are poison and that they're only hurting others and ourselves. We have to return to a balanced spiritual state where instead of taking from the earth like a parasite, we serve the earth. We worship the earth like the great being that she is. We worship the earth as a mother. And ultimately, as bhaktas, we worship each other and everyone, because within everyone's heart is a temple of Krishna. You know, some people say, you know, everyone is God. I see God in everyone. Everyone is God. To be more specifically technical, within every living creature are two souls, the supreme soul, Paramatma, and the individual soul, you, me. So here, in this body, is a little temple of my heart, and in that temple is seated a form of Krishna called Paramatma. And I get to dwell in this structure through his facilitation. This life, this breath, these words, anything that I do is only coming through his facilitation. He is the cause, he's the action, he's the result, he's even the field of action. The only contribution that I have to the whole thing really is the clarity or purity of my desire. If I desire to do something good with this gift and I am sincere, then I will be empowered to do good and sincere things. So, as usual, I've gone over my time. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be with all of you. Please do support my Patreon project and get first access and also lots of other cool things. There's ways to become my patron and support all kinds of awesome stuff that we're doing, original music and whatever, as well as programs like this. As you know, I'm not traveling anymore, so this is like how we're doing it now. So please support the offering of sacred music and kirtan, and definitely 100% support your local Bhakti Yoga DC community. Gopi is our well-wisher, and she's sacrificing her life to care for us and protect us and give us a space in this incredibly challenging time and incredibly challenging city. So thank you so much. Any thoughts or questions before we sign off for the night? Krishna, 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 hey. Oh, so many beautiful friends. All right. So look forward to part 2. Next part 2, we're gonna have to read a little bit of Prabhupada's introduction. You know, going through the book is a really beautiful and deep thing to do. So I hope we get the chance to do that. Yeah, prayers for everyone struggling in this world. Prayers for my children fighting upstairs. I don't know if you guys can hear that. All right, my friends. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Hari Bol.